Good evening, students, knights, and teachers of the Jedi Praxeum. This is our 5th Wednesday soliloquy. And tonight I want to speak about fluidity and flexibility. My week has been difficult. I injured my ankle last Thursday. It's been an absolutely unpleasant experience. Work has picked up drastically in output, even though it is below freezing and raining and icy, and I'm a mechanic. I mean, that's not supposed to be the same thing. Shouldn't have this level of influx of work, considering the weather. But that actually brings me to tonight's point. The force is the waterfall. It is the river. It is the flow. And there are times that this flow will just shift on you in some of the weirdest ways. For example, yesterday, Tuesday, 2/22/22 on the Tuesday, the last time that's going to happen, centuries. I got up and I was about to go to work and it was raining, monsoon level. You couldn't see 2 car lengths ahead of you. Go out there and start to crank my truck and it won't do it. It was running just fine the day before, but it wouldn't crank at all. I ended up having to borrow a car and get to work in monsoon level rain that kept the traction control running on this car for about 85% of my drive to work. I bring that up because it's a front wheel drive car. It's a much more modern vehicle and it has actual traction control. Mine is a 95 4-wheel drive optional, which I wouldn't have run because it's noisy and it's way too bad on gas for just highway driving. But it's rear-wheel drive, which tends to make you fishtail in the rain a lot. So I had to take this other car, and I absolutely needed the traction control for the vast majority of the drive. And I drive back, and I get to the house, and the truck's running just fine. No reason. There's no codes in it. There's no water in the intake. There's no reason this vehicle should not have run. But it wouldn't run. And the reason was that if I had taken my truck to work in that monsoon, I'd have probably ended up in a ditch dead. So I just kind of had to be flexible. Just kind of had to run with it. It wasn't as pleasant as it could have been because the ankle that I damaged was my right ankle, and this car has a very stiff accelerator, so it bothered my ankle, but it's better than ending up in a ditch somewhere, right? So we have to realize that this flow can change, and we really just have to be able to change with it. There are some days that the change is subtle. There are some days that the change is absolutely drastic. But we have to be able to experience that flow and that change. Now we're about halfway, a little under halfway through this course as a whole. And there are people that I'm talking to, they're going, I'm getting a lot out of this course, but I don't really know if this is where I fit. Like, the Force is very much what feels right to them, but does the Jedi? As I mentioned last week, the Jedi are not the only way to do this. And there are times that the flow will take you away from it. There are times it'll bring you back too. I mentioned more than once about the fact that I did stray from strictly being on the path. I was still on the path, but I was also cross-training in a lot of occult traditions, most specifically Druidry, Celtic Druids. And that exposure actually enriched my existence a lot. It enriched my path quite a bit. So the further we get into this, if you feel it's pulling you away from the Jedi, but it's not pulling you away from the Force, then don't be afraid of that. Don't be ashamed of it, and don't run from it. What's more important is don't feel like you're letting anybody down if that happens. I've said this a few times, and I'll explain it a little better. A Jedi is one that knows the path is rigid, yet the way unique. We all have our own unique way from the bottom of the mountain to the top. We're all aiming for the top of the mountain, theoretically. But we all start from different points. And we all have different obstacles, and we all have different hindrances. And you know, the Jedi way is one of those ways up the mountain. The Jedi path is a very particular path up this mountain. It's not very flexible, to be honest. The concept isn't that the person bends the path to fit them. They bend themselves to fit the path. That's what training is. You train yourself to fit this mold, not you train this mold to fit you. That is not training. I have said much harsher things about it in the past, and I'm not going to do that because, you know, it leads people to where they need to go. But eventually, you bend that name too many times, and it doesn't fit anymore. It's like saying, this is silver, and then it's a little darker. No, it's still silver. A little darker, still silver. Eventually, it's black, but that means it's not silver anymore. But it's just a little darker than the last time you said it was silver, you know? So, if you're on this path and you can't get up the mountain that way, that's fine. If you have to step off the path to get up the mountain, that's fine. You have to step off for a time or forever, whichever, you know? We're not some pseudo-military space wizard order, and we don't have to, you know, there is no, like, dedication to the Jedi Order kind of thing, you know? Everybody here is here because that's where they want to be. It's where they feel they need to be. We don't pay your bills. We don't provide, you know, roof over your head, food in your stomach. We don't take care of your family. We care for your family. We will send all the help that we can. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we don't pay your paycheck. You are not staunchly obligated to be Jedi. If you came to this path and found yourself with Jedi and it felt right at the beginning, the further you get in, the more the Force feels right. But the Jedi doesn't necessarily. That's fine. Especially in this course, my very particular take on the Jedi is very martial, but it's mystical, and it's very not group-oriented. I came up in a time where for the first 3 years on the path, I thought I was the only one, you know? Intellectually, I understood there was more, but I didn't know any. This path has always been a very solitary path for me, and that's how I've progressed. That's how it's progressed with me, and that's why I think I've gotten the most benefit from it, is because I don't have anybody else that shared in my earlier experiences. And so I had to fight through it. I couldn't ask questions of anybody. I could ask questions of Karis, and when he got time, he would answer them. But most often the answer was, meditate on this and tell me what you find. That could have just been him not having an answer. He wasn't the oldest dude either. He was a pretty young cat when it happened. But maybe he did have the answer. Maybe he knew the answer was to meditate. Apologies. Maybe the answer was just to meditate, to rest, to think, or to unthink on something, you know? Back to the topic of going with the flow, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I was ordering a bunch of some of the newer or more obscure Jedi religion and spiritualism books. They got shipped out of Dallas and they got sent to an Amazon place here in Memphis. And then for some reason it was transferred to the U.S. Postal Service and sent to the Atlanta, Georgia area and lost completely. Nobody knows where it is. It's just gone. Like it was never checked in Atlanta. It was checked out to Atlanta and it's never gotten checked in. Nobody knows where it went. Postal Service can't find it. Amazon couldn't find it. They refunded me my money. Okay. In that time, 3 of the 5 books I had ordered had gotten a lot of reviews that were very lacking. They were very lackluster. And so I decided that with this refund, I would order different books. 2 of them I did order the same. And so I just went with the flow of it. These other books, if I had sat on it for a second, I would have seen these lackluster reviews and never ordered them to begin with. But, you know, live and learn, right? I would have been one of the lackluster reviews. And that's just how that would have been. I'm typically very generous when it comes to what people take the time to write because I know I've sat down and I've written it. I've written it in ways that make people's brains hurt because the 4 books that I have, I wrote them on a BlackBerry when I used to work overnights at a security job for a country club. Anytime I was between rounds, I would open up my BlackBerry and on keys that were 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter, I typed 4 separate books. 2 of them on the Jedi path very specifically, and 2 of them Jedi adjacent type of thing. They're very martial force heavy, but they're not specifically of the path, but they do speak to many of the same truths. So I don't judge people too harshly when they write on something that isn't very well documented and well researched. And we don't have a lot of history. So what everybody's putting on paper is their experience, their understanding. And we have to compile that. So I'm not terribly harsh when it comes to these, but apologies again. I'm not terribly harsh when it comes to these, to reviewing these works of individuals that are putting themselves out there for the first time. But the Force made it where I was not going to get these books. And so I ordered different books. And the ones I ordered instead look to be that they will be a much more beneficial point to informing a more complete understanding of the path, because they're actually not path-specific books. One of them is based on the concept of the modern warrior mystic, which is an underlying current in this course. The other one is on I think it was the 13 points of enlightenment or something along those lines. I don't remember what the exact number was, but something about the various pillars of understanding and enlightenment that people go through in various esoteric and spiritual trainings. And I don't know if that's going to actually help or not, but we'll find out. The point of this, and the very rambling nature of it, kind of just goes back to the underlying point of the flow of things is the flow of things. We can't decide. We can't guarantee. We don't know. Like my truck, yesterday, it just wouldn't start. Don't know why, but it just wouldn't start. When I got home, it wouldn't start at first, and then it cranked up, ran just fine. Ran like a top today. Didn't have to change anything. Don't know what was wrong with it. All I can think of is that the monsoon level water flooded something out, but it was still raining pretty good when I got back to the house, and so it shouldn't have dried out enough to run. But I tried to start it for like 10 minutes before I gave up and took the car that I needed because the traction control saved my life. I've spoken in the past about pulling up to a red light on my way to a job when I was working overnights, and the light turned green. I hit the gas pedal and the car just died. I tried to crank it, but it was in gear, so I had to put it in neutral so that the neutral safety switch would disengage and it would let me crank the car back up. And while I was cranking the car back up, this dually with a horse trailer blew through the light, unable to stop. Just a split second, but from a stop, if the car had not died, I would have been in dude's way. That's another one of those, the flow just does things. But that's a really old story. This one with the traction control on this car, in my truck, that was a very yesterday story. And so the reason I brought it up today is that it's still a thing. It's still a thing for all of us. The more we align with the Force, the more the Force will align with us. And yes, I know last week I was speaking about how the Force doesn't take sides. It doesn't, quote, care. And it doesn't. It cares for its balance. If it truly cared, we would not have balance because we would not be able to have the yin and yang. It has to be impartial in that point to maintain true balance. Like your body. Your body does this. It destroys things. It creates things. Your body produces the poisons that would kill it. That's what your biological waste is. So, I mean, it's a balancing act of yin and yang, of yin and yang. And so the Force doesn't pick sides like that. It picks both sides. It is both sides. It has only both sides. But the more you align yourself with the Force, the more the Force aligns with you. It will flow with you when you flow with it. That's the meaning of the statement of it. It obeys your commands, but it controls your actions. It informs everything that you do. And as long as you're not trying to break some law of existence, it will back you up in pretty much everything that you do. That's the depth of the meaning of I am one with the Force and the Force is with me. I hold no fear, for all is as the Force wills it. So I want everybody to just think. You can post something about it if you want. Send it to me directly. Wait till Sunday to talk about it. Or don't talk about it at all. It doesn't matter. But I want you to think about some time when the Force just kind of stepped up and stepped in and said, we're flowing this way today, and you do not get a choice. This will be the safeguard that keeps you from being dead in a ditch. Tell me, or tell yourself. Find it. At some point, somewhere, the Force has done this for all of us, and we may not even attribute it to that. It may just be, wow, that was lucky. Is there luck, though? I don't know. I don't think so. Of course, I've got a really interesting concept on luck, but we'll worry about that later. So, Just everybody take the time and find when the Force has altered the flow and gave you no choice. And it turned out to be the absolute best option. It's an option that you would not have taken without being forced to take it. And it was the best option possible. Like, I always have the option during the week of taking either of these vehicles to work. But I typically take my truck because it's my truck. I like it. It's durable and it's lasted a very long time. It's almost got 300,000 miles on it. It is my truck. But if I had taken that Tuesday, I'd have died. No doubt. No doubt at all. I would not be here talking to you now. Because the Force said, you've got to be here tomorrow. Too bad. Force guide and protect you all. It'll do it. Just let it. Be one with the Force, and it will be with you.